I was thinking today of a quotation in probably most or all of you have heard this quotation by Ajahn Chah. You probably know enough about his personality, general demeanor, and from the many stories from Ajahn Pavaro and other monks and so forth, for this to make sense. But there was a kind of course, a great deal of confidence in him, in the Dhamma, because our understanding is he had seen, experienced it, and grown wise to it through direct experience. And so things that he said, and basically all he said related to Dhamma, things that he said often had a kind of compact rhetorical force. They struck home. And this is one of those things that got me reflecting today. He said, if it's not good, let it die. If it won't die, make it good. Lovely little formulation, easy to remember, and something about it, even if we don't know whether we can put it into effect, something about it, I think, rings true. There's a bell has been struck in the heart. If it isn't good, let it die. If it won't die, make it good. I imagine that some bhikkhu or another or bhikkhuni has reflected on that statement, among many others, but for hundreds of Dhamma talks. And so all I can do is just reflect a little bit on it in my own particular way at this particular time. And it might be different tomorrow, but I noticed, for instance, that, and I don't know the Thai that it came from, and so I wouldn't be able to discern the particular strength of the verbs, but notice in terms of our experience, our noticing something which isn't good, isn't wholesome, isn't skillful. His first advice is to let it go. So there's a kind of, obviously there's a tension there. There's a noticing, this isn't good. But the instruction here by him is to let it go. So kind of softening, you're opening your arms, you're opening your hands, you're opening the grasp of your hands and letting it go. But if it won't go, if you can't let it go, then you make it good. Okay, so the verb here is making. So there's a different kind of effort. There's a different kind of skill that is required of us here. Something isn't good, let it go. If it won't go, make it good. And what this does for me, I guess, is to bring me back. And in the last few months, I seem to kind of revolve around this general theme. But it all stems from awareness, doesn't it? The fact of awareness, is it present or not? But also you might say that its power, its depth, its bearing, because we're all aware that I'm aware that I'm talking, you're aware of hearing something, but your mind might be flitting to this and that. Your knee might have just gotten a little bit ouchy. Maybe your sitting cushion isn't very comfortable and you have to adjust and so forth. So the mind is going around a little bit. You just heard something, or you wonder whether you should have maybe made a cup of tea for yourself to have while this is going on, and so on and so forth. So the mind may not be in a strong kind of mindful sense, attending to every word I'm saying, for instance. So we look in life for ways to establish this quality, this elusive quality of mindfulness further, to make it, to see it registering in our day-to-day life in a palpable sense, so that we can recognize it and make use of it, and so on. And that seems to be what we keep coming to in practice. Go to a retreat and just the strictures of the retreat, kind of obeying the schedule and so forth, mindfulness will develop. You're not getting to look around and gawk and read this and that and worry about this and that, but there's a set of reins on your attention, and you're returning your attention to some sort of wholesome object like the breathing regularly. But then you go home, and before too long, most likely things slip a bit. That's very natural. And then at some point, the question can arise, oh, where did it go and how do I get it back? I can't go back to a retreat. What do I do? What do I do? Well, you all know what to do, basically. And that involves establishing a practice at home when you're not on retreat. And that can be a trial for some, and for some reason, it's relatively easy or natural for others. It varies, of course. One of the things that varies is having a place in a home that offers just that little bit of seclusion you need, a little bit of quiet, maybe hopefully even a place that you can, if you're so inclined, decorate it a little bit, have some wholesome objects present that remind the mind. Maybe you burn a little incense, not sure, but also the what's called the set and setting are important for meditation. But you can't always rely on this. And sometimes you're in the bus going to work, or in the car at a stoplight, or trying not to cut yourself on the knife that you're trying to wash in the sudsy water, whatever it is. So life in its myriad forms intrudes in ways that are unpredictable and also routine and habitual, and life goes on and on. But us lucky folk who have this interest in practice, bhavana, so widely understood in terms of the development of morality and actual sitting practice, and developing concentration and mindfulness, and cultivating, we hope, wise ways of looking at things, even if it begins, and it certainly will, with reflection, with reminding ourselves of valuable lists. What are the Four Noble Truths again? What are the three characteristics of existence? How do the three characteristics apply to that little tiff I had at work today, or and so on. So we're reflecting in a way that ultimately can be very beneficial for us. So life goes on in this kind of way for practitioners, and I know some of you have been at this for a long time. Sadhu, sadhu. I do not believe that any of us ever regrets on the final moments before our demise that we have given ourselves to this practice, have put effort towards something which is difficult, and to gaining some kind of authority and clarity about this otherwise unruly thing we call mind. I don't think that we will ever regret having put our effort in this way. In fact, in my way of reflecting on this, the death itself will be a clearer and perhaps even more luminous experience. It's hard to say as an observer how it is for others, but it certainly cannot hurt. So lately, I've been thinking about things of this nature, and so encouraging people to. Because most of us aren't sitting in meditation all day. I expect none of us are, in fact. But to encourage people to find little things in their life that they do habitually, regularly, and not too many of them. Don't make a strenuous project out of this. How many times do you wash? Well, I'm not sure how many of you wash dishes yourselves, but probably you do incidental things like a couple of coffee cups or something. I'm not sure, but in any case, there are all kinds of activities that you undertake in a day. Maybe every evening after the meal, you normally sweep the floor. Probably most of you drive. Some of you may not be going to work anymore. Many of you are, but anyway, you're driving, and so you encounter other people, other cars. And very often, none of them can seem to drive as well as we can, it seems. And the roadways include nasty bits of business such as red lights and so on. So there's a lot going on and a lot that requires attention. Okay. So this is just an example. Now you can choose anything. You can choose your daily walk with a dog. You can choose the 20 minutes you try to give to keeping your, weeding your little flower garden, or you can take the first minute of getting into bed, or the first minute of waking up and getting out of bed in the morning. You can choose anything. And as I say, I just suggest choosing, making this a practice in just a few things for a while, and give yourself a week. And that's your retreat. My retreat this week is watching my mind whenever I stop at a stoplight or a stop sign. Just watching my mind. There's just a few moments there. The light may change in a flicker, or it may, I may have to wait for a minute or so, but I've got to sit there anyway. So I'm just going to watch my mind then. And that's all. And so at the end of the day, you might think, well, let's see, how is my driving today? Yeah, okay, I took the regular route and I had that stop sign and this light and that light, and I had 2 red lights and the rest were green, and so on and so forth. Did I remember? And if you did, sadhu, that's a little element of practice you've inserted very skillfully into your day. And if you haven't, okay, tomorrow then, tomorrow. I'll make an effort again. I just put a little bit more effort. Don't berate yourself. Don't worry about it, because the mind has been developing the habits that you experience for all of your life, and for all we know, for many lives. The particular habits of mind that you have, the way it goes to irritation or desire or willingness or confusion or this or that. I mean, these things have been going on for a very long time. And our project with this beautiful heart and mind of ours is to begin inserting some awareness, some gentle, mindful awareness in what's taking place in the present. And if you're impatient in front of the red light, that's okay too. Oh yeah, I sat there, I noticed that I was impatient because I was actually a little late getting to my coffee appointment or to work or something. But then when I noticed it, when I actually brought my mind to it, like I promised I would, like I'm trying to, it did soften, didn't it? Good. So give yourself a little report like that. Don't be hard. Don't be harsh in how you judge your successes and failures, but notice what you've done and what you haven't done, and begin again tomorrow. And choose some little activity which is normal, habitual, which you do every day. That's why, washing a few dishes might be the best thing. Making the bed, we all do these things, don't we? Step into the shower. Do you have a shower every day? Whatever it is, just set yourself a little task. Maybe, write it out on the fridge, stick a magnet on there, and just remind yourself. I know this sounds simple, almost childish, and it would work probably for children too. The difference with children is if you could expose it to them in the right way, they might actually be more enthusiastic about it than adults are. Anyway, give yourself time, because we're all pieces of work, aren't we? Okay. So if it's bad, let it go. If something isn't wholesome, let it go. So in the way I'm talking about mindfulness here, it seems to me, I'm focusing on this quality of noticing what is and then just letting it pass. And the fact that you've seen it is a success, is the beauty of heart and mind in this moment. Okay. I'll give you the first half of it. Maybe you've heard me say this, or you might have read this too. Beautiful book by Ajahn Pavaro. So he's asked, Lumpur, do you ever get angry? And he says, yes, but I let it go. And then the questioner says, how do you let it go in time? How does one let it go, let anger go in time? And he says, there's no one who lets it go. If you notice it, it just goes by itself. Now, the experience of anger is a little different than spending 20 minutes gardening, taking a few weeds out of your flower bed, or washing the coffee cup. Experience of anger is experienced differently. It registers in the body in a different way. Yeah, but so too does getting really ticked off at the red light when you're in a big hurry. So anger is part of this. I suggest that it's generally easier to let go of what seem to be kind of incidental, or things that we've selected. And that's why I'm suggesting going at this easily. But when we develop some practice around this, you might find, and in your daily reflection, you might start noticing this happening, that the next few moments after that red light stop, or what have you, the next few moments, or the conversation that you began after getting in the elevator in that mindful way, was clearer, was more present. You were more embodied where you were, because it will spill over into the rest of your life. We can't demand that it does, but it just, that's its nature over time. Okay. And patience. We need patience with this. But if it doesn't go, then you make it good. What does he mean by that? So it isn't good and you let it go. But it won't go, so you make it good. So this is where this additional element of effort seems to be demanded, and explicitly so in Lumpor's statement. And one of the places this might begin, some of the resources that we have to draw upon, are things like we engaged in the beginning of this meditation, because you can, although you might slip up and get angry with people, and really sit with your jealousy or your irritation or resentment for some time, even so, the fact that you give yourself to practice, to bhavana, to cultivation of these things, means that you have some resources. And we were just composing some very easy, gentle things in language, wishing others well, wishing ourselves well. Just be healthy, just be safe, just flourish in life. May we all be well and happy. And you can be more articulate in this. You can spend longer with this, and we can think of how a prayer might work here. So you can write it down. In fact, you can write it down and you can memorize it. I've certainly done this before. And then over the next weeks, or even over the next years, but you can feel free to adjust it. This adjective could change a little. I think this verb works better, or I need to add this section on this other dimension of loving kindness, this other dimension of my well-wishing. Whatever, make it yours though. And in so doing, you're developing resources. You have something to draw upon. It may not seem so when you're doing it, but it comes more naturally because you're establishing wholesome habits. The mind tends to do what it's been doing, what it's directed towards. This is the way wholesome habits, this is the way practice develops. So then when something comes up and we can't let it go and we have to make it good, what do? We wish that cantankerous person, or that lady at the office, or my brother-in-law, or whoever it is who actually makes cutting remarks sometimes towards me. I now have some resource, some legitimate, wholesome resource to apply. It doesn't mean that I can make the conversation be better, but it means that in my quiet moments, I can actually focus on this person a little bit, generate some healing, potential goodness into this relationship. And then it may not change the person. The lady might still be a little bit off-putting or cantankerous, and the brother-in-law might never quite get used to the fact that you're in the family, or whatever. But but you're a different person, slowly but surely. And it's easier to keep your head and keep your heart in the midst of a little bit of irritation or animosity that's being directed towards you. And it may come to the point that the irritation that you would normally have felt, the resentment you would normally have carried around for some time, simply doesn't arise anymore. But even if it does, if you're working with it, its duration will be shortened and shortened and shortened, and its quality, its characteristic, its character will be enlightened, you might say. It's being softened and aerated. It becomes more effervescent until finally it just kind of floats away. I remember one time, this is many years ago at Birken, and this is not some sort of special claim or anything, but this practice gives you give yourself to loving kindness, and sometimes, for whatever reason, you decide, it's a pretty good idea to work with this a lot. I should do this a lot. Maybe I'm noticing irritation coming up in the daily work life or something. You need to remember that monasteries are composed of people who are basically good people trying to be better, but they have tempers, they have irritation, they have opinions, they have temperaments, and all the rest of it. And they can express themselves in various ways. And sometimes maybe there's a bit of passive aggression. And a lot comes up in monasteries, and it is a rather enclosed community, of course. And so, things come up. So, and meanwhile, you've got to get things done. There's cleaning, or there's building, there's doing stuff you never had to do. I never knew anything about plumbing until I got to a monastery. And then I did learn a few things. Anyway, so one summer, I guess, I must have, in retrospect, I couldn't even think what in particular I did that was different. But here's what I noticed. And all I'm doing is suggesting that this is what happens when we give ourselves to this practice. I started noticing that I wasn't being irritated by anything. It wasn't like I was floating around, la, 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 as we say. Nothing like that. I was mindful and doing what I needed to do, but I just wasn't experiencing irritation. And I must have been still at a point when it wasn't always easy, or I wasn't eating enough maybe at the meal. And I remember there was a period when, after I had finished eating, in a while, I'd experienced this kind of, that's it, it's now I have to wait for toast in the morning, that kind of thing. And meanwhile, we're hauling sheets of plywood around or something. But there, with accompanying that, I noticed there was a bit of irritation. But because I noticed it, because this mindfulness had been developing for quite a while, I noticed it would just arise like a turtle raising its head in the water, and then just the head would go down again, and it just went away. And it was striking. It was palpable. It was noticeable, and this went on for several days. I didn't experience any irritation, which was. It was very encouraging, and this is why I'm mentioning it to you. And probably all of you have had similar kinds of experiences, maybe coming back from retreats, maybe encounter your spouse and they haven't come on the retreat, and well, how was it? There can be a little bit of that, and because they've been holding the home front and all that, and it just flows off you very easily. Anyway. That is the nature of conditioned states. If we don't attach to them, if they don't become configured and rooted into our experience, they just come and they go. They come and they go. It's a little more difficult, actually, in terms of things that we like. Maybe the dessert tray or something like that. And here I've noticed, and maybe I've made jokes about this before, but I'll make a determination. Golly, I don't need dessert every day, or I'm gonna not take ice cream, except once every 2 weeks. Or you make some little determination, and then when it comes to the point, it's pretty easy to give yourself a reason why you can just ignore it, or you choose, your hand goes to the biggest cookie or something. I mean, it's quite humorous, and it's good to have fun with it and just to observe it, and then to try better, to resolve it. If you don't notice it, then nothing happens, does it? So these are just some reflections on this beautiful statement by Lumpur Cha, and its depth. I imagine that you could feel the dimensions of experience in life and meditation that it could apply to. Basically, it doesn't apply. It doesn't not apply to anything. You might say it's a pretty awkward way of saying it, but it's a very beautiful truth that we can carry with us and apply. But when people come to monasteries, especially, they haven't been around monks for a while, and something in their life has really gone sideways for a while, and I'm not making any progress, and I thought I was for a while, but it's been a long time since I was at a retreat, whatever it is, or my spouse is really starting to criticize me about this or that, or whatever it is. You come to a monastery, and these are the kinds of questions that come up, and they come up regularly because they're part of everyone's experience. And the way this practice works, and it does require patience, it demands of us a kind of a willingness to begin again, and cultivate a loving, receptive, generous, patient heart, so that the ongoing stumbles that we make in our practice will will be allowed to occur, and we'll just begin again, and we won't generate with such ease and normality, with habitual ease, the inner critic, the inner tyrant, as we often say. And if the tyrant comes up again, find a way to notice it. There you are. Hello. Okay, you can go now. Thanks for bringing this to my attention, but you can go. Thank you. I think another image of Lumpur Cha is being in a room, and there's two doors, and a person comes in through one door and wants to get your attention, and so on and so forth. There's the other door, and you just are polite and then ignore them. Just are polite and let them go, and then eventually they have to leave the other door because there's no place for them to sit. And our one way of looking at the difficulty that we make for ourselves is that we live in this auditorium, and half the chairs are empty, and things can come in and take as much space and time as they want, and we've got the inner critic working this way and that until we can hardly keep them straight sometimes. But just think of some practice which is very simple, straightforward. It doesn't involve gritting your teeth and shouting at this person who's come in the door, this defilement that is trying to get your attention. It's just, if I notice you, nod my head, okay, and there's the other door. It's a simple kind of thing. And once in a while, you'll see it happening, and seeing it happen and noticing it happening, reflecting, that's what it's like. Gives you a little bit more confidence to move forward. And we all need to feel this confidence in our practice, because we just make mistakes from one moment to the next for all of our lives half the time, right? There's that old Zen epitaph on a tombstone, I guess, to a Zen master. I've just one mistake after another in my life. So some patience and resolve, both of these qualities are required. And when you think of one quality, think of a balancing quality to to bring some order and balance, harmony into practice. But I'll leave those thoughts with my good wishes, and have some time for questions.